I had just $8 left, a car that barely ran, and a heart full of regret. When my engine died in the middle of nowhere, I thought I'd reached my lowest point. But then a stranger offered help, and hours later, his entire life was turned upside down. Because of me. Hi, I'm Girl's Name, and this is the story of how a small act of kindness from a stranger turned into something no one could have imagined. If you've ever felt lost, broken, or just needed a miracle, stay with me till the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon, because true stories like this can change how we see the world. I still remember the way the steering wheel felt under my hands that night, cold, worn, and shaking slightly as the engine coughed one last time and died. I sat there in the dark, parked on the side of a quiet street, headlights dimmed, and tears streaming down my cheeks. That moment felt like the bottom. I'd hit it. I was broke, not just financially, but emotionally too. My bank account had exactly $8.46 in it, and my gas tank was nearly empty. I hadn't eaten a proper meal in over a day, and the fridge back home only had a half-empty bottle of ketchup and stale bread. I'd been out of work for 3 months, and every job rejection felt like another door slammed in my face. I was alone. No partner, no family close by, no one to call who wouldn't answer with a sigh or silence. It's not that I didn't try, believe me, I tried, but life just seemed to keep saying no at every turn. And now my car, the one thing that helped me chase every possible opportunity, was falling apart more and more each day. I couldn't afford repairs. Heck, I couldn't even afford a bus pass for the week. That night, sitting alone in the car with my coat zipped up to my chin and hands numb from the cold, I cried in a way I hadn't cried in years. The kind of cry where your chest aches and your throat burns, and you're not sure if you're angry, scared, or just tired of trying. I remember whispering to myself, maybe this is it. Maybe I'm not meant to get back up. But deep down, something small, fragile and stubborn still hoped for a sign, for a break, for someone to care. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and the same weight in my chest I'd gone to sleep with. But I couldn't afford to stay in bed. I had a job interview, my last hope, really. It wasn't anything glamorous, just a front desk position at a small insurance office in another town about 45 minutes away. But it was something, a chance to start again. I wore my only clean shirt, pulled my hair back, and grabbed the folder with my resume that I'd printed 2 weeks ago at the library. I prayed the whole way as I drove, repeating over and over, just get me there, just get me there. But about 20 minutes in, my car started making this rattling noise. It wasn't new, but this time it sounded angrier, like it wasn't going to hang in much longer. I turned the radio off to listen more closely. The check engine light blinked, then stayed solid. I held my breath, gripping the wheel tighter. Then, it happened. The engine gave out with a sputter and a low clunk. I barely had enough momentum to steer it safely to the side of the road. Smoke started to rise from under the hood, and my heart dropped straight into my stomach. No, please, not now, not today. I sat there frozen, staring at the dashboard. My phone battery was at 6%. I had no roadside assistance, no one nearby to help. I wasn't even sure what town I'd broken down in. The interview was definitely off the table now. That hopeless feeling came rushing back, even stronger this time. I closed my eyes, leaned back, and whispered, "What am I going to do?" Then, I heard footsteps. I looked up, wiping my face quickly, embarrassed. A man was walking toward me from across the street. He looked to be in his late 30s, wearing a navy work shirt with his name, Ray, stitched on the front. His hands were covered in grease, and he had the kind of calm face that somehow made you feel safe, even if you didn't know him. "You all right, miss?" he asked gently. I nodded too quickly, trying to act like I had it under control. "Yeah, just car trouble. I'll figure it out," I said, even though I clearly had no plan. He glanced at the car, then back at me. "Well, I own that little shop just down the road. If you want, I can take a look. No charge. Promise. No charge? I stared at him for a second. Was this some kind of trick? People don't just offer to help for free, do they? I hesitated, my pride battling with my reality. But honestly, I had nothing to lose. So I nodded. He motioned for me to put it in neutral and helped push it slowly down the street, right into the lot of a small garage that had a flickering neon sign. Ray's Auto Repair. Inside, it smelled like oil, metal, and something oddly comforting. He had me sit inside while he opened the hood and got to work. Ray didn't ask for money. He didn't ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. He just worked, quietly, kindly. After about 20 minutes, he came in and offered me a bottle of water. "This might take a bit," he said, "but I think I can get her running again." I nodded, my throat tight. No one had helped me like this in a long time. As Ray worked on my car, I sat in the small waiting area. It had 2 mismatched chairs, a dusty vending machine, and a wall filled with old pictures. Ray with customers, family, maybe friends. It was quiet, except for the occasional clang of tools and the hum of an old fan. I stared at the floor, still unsure how to feel. Part of me was grateful, the other part was scared it was all too good to be true. After a while, Ray stepped inside and sat across from me, wiping sweat and grease from his forehead with an old rag. He took a sip of his soda and looked at me, not in a judging way, but like someone who just understood. "You heading somewhere important?" he asked. I hesitated. A job interview, or I guess was heading there. He nodded like he already knew. "Rough week?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Rough year." He didn't press, just nodded again and said, "Been there." Something about those 2 words, "been there," broke something inside me. I don't know why, but I started talking. Told him I'd lost my job, my savings, my confidence. How every day felt heavier than the last. How I didn't even recognize the person I'd become. Ray listened. Really listened. No pity, no advice I didn't ask for, just quiet understanding. "I was homeless once," he finally said. "Lived in my truck for 6 months after my first shop burned down. Lost everything. Took years to rebuild. But I did." I looked at him, stunned. "Point is," he added with a gentle smile, "rock bottom ain't the end. Sometimes it's just the start of a better story." That moment changed something in me. Not everything, but enough to start hoping again. Ray spent the next hour working under the hood. I watched him from the waiting room window, hands steady, brow furrowed, completely focused. Every now and then he'd step back, stretch his arms, then dive back in like he was fixing something that mattered. And to him, it clearly did. When he finally came back inside, he wiped his hands and gave me a little smile. "She's not perfect," he said, "but she'll run, at least long enough to get you where you need to go." I was stunned. "Really?" He nodded. "Had a busted radiator hose, and the belt was nearly gone. I patched it up best I could." I started digging in my bag. I knew I didn't have much, but I needed to give him something. "I can give you $8, I said, embarrassed. "It's all I have right now. I swear I'll pay the rest later." But Ray raised a hand, stopping me. "Don't worry about it," he said. "Just promise me you won't give up. That's payment enough." I couldn't hold back anymore. I just started crying. Not the quiet, polite kind, but full, messy sobs. I think all the stress and fear I'd been carrying for months just spilled out right there in that tiny auto shop. Ray grabbed a box of tissues and handed them to me without a word. Just sat there while I pulled myself together. "I don't know why you're doing this," I whispered, "but thank you." He shrugged like it was no big deal. "Kindness doesn't cost anything, but it means everything when someone really needs it." And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in so long. Seen, cared for, human again. After Ray finished, I thanked him again, probably 10 times, and drove off, heart lighter than it had been in months. The car actually felt different. Not just because it ran better, but because I had hope again. I even started thinking maybe I could still make something out of this mess of a life. But about 2 hours later, while parked at a rest stop, I went to grab my wallet and froze. My bag was gone. Panic hit instantly. I must have left it in Ray's shop when I was rushing out. Inside that bag wasn't just my wallet and phone charger. It was also something I didn't even mean to carry with me, my ex's old phone. I'd taken it months ago during one of his rages and never turned it in, scared of what was on it. Messages, photos, threats. Stuff I never looked at, but stuff I knew could hurt people. I meant to throw it away, but kept it hidden. And now it was sitting in a mechanic's shop, with the GPS still active. That's when the fear kicked in. Because if he found out where it was, Ray could be in danger, and it would all be my fault. By the time I realized what I'd done, it was already too late. I tried calling the shop, but it rang and rang. No answer. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. My ex, he wasn't just mean. He was dangerous, controlling, and smart. If he tracked that phone to Ray's shop, he'd think I was there, and he wouldn't come alone. About an hour later, I got the news from a local Facebook group I followed. People were posting about police cars outside a little mechanic shop on Main Street. Sirens, police tape, a man detained. My heart sank. It was Ray's shop. He had been surrounded, not just by police, but by the men my ex sent, looking for me. I couldn't breathe. My mistake, my fear, my silence had dragged an innocent man into something terrifying. Ray didn't even know who I really was. He helped me out of pure kindness, and this was how the world repaid him. I felt sick. My chest was tight, my hands cold. I had to do something, fast, because if I didn't step in and tell the truth, Ray might lose everything because of me. I didn't wait. I drove straight to the nearest police station, heart pounding the whole way. I barely remember parking the car or walking through the doors. Everything felt blurry, like I was watching myself from the outside. But I knew what I had to do. I told them everything. The officer at the front desk called someone else in, and soon I was sitting in a small room with 2 detectives. I explained about the phone, about my ex, about the bag I'd left behind. I even gave them the restraining order I had never filed, the messages he'd sent, the bruises I tried to hide. It all came pouring out. Every secret I'd carried in silence, every shameful detail. They listened, and to my relief, they believed me. They assured me Ray hadn't been hurt, just shaken and confused. My ex's men had showed up looking for me, and someone from a nearby business had called the cops before things got out of control. The police had arrived just in time. I asked if I could see Ray, to explain. They said he'd given a statement and gone home. Home. That word hit me hard. I didn't even know where home was anymore, but I knew I owed him more than just an apology. I drove to Ray's shop the next morning. The police tape was gone, but the damage was clear. Tools scattered, a window cracked, the front door left slightly ajar. I found him inside, sitting on a stool, staring at nothing. When he looked up and saw me, there was no anger in his eyes, just exhaustion. "I'm sorry," I whispered. He just nodded. I figured it wasn't about the car anymore. And just like that, I broke down all over again. I stood there in front of him, crying like a child. I couldn't even get the words out right at first. I just kept saying, "I'm sorry," over and over. Ray finally stood up, walked over, and handed me the same old tissue box from yesterday. "You didn't mean for any of this to happen," he said quietly. "Sometimes trouble follows good people." I looked up at him, expecting anger or blame. But all I saw was kindness, maybe a little sadness. But still kindness. "I should have told you about the phone," I said, wiping my face. "I should have never brought that into your life." He sighed. "You were scared. You were surviving. I get it." Then he added something I'll never forget. "Helping someone always comes with risk, but I'd still do it again. Just maybe next time. Tell me the whole story, yeah?" I smiled through my tears. Deal. That moment was so simple. No big speeches, no dramatic music. Just two people who had both been hurt by life, standing in the middle of a messy, broken shop, and somehow choosing to keep trusting anyway. I didn't just feel forgiven, I felt seen, again. And that meant everything. In the weeks that followed, everything started to shift, slowly but surely. The police launched an investigation into my ex. With my full statement and the phone as evidence, they finally had enough to press charges. A few weeks later, I got the call I'd been waiting for. He'd been arrested. For the first time in years, I felt safe. I also got a second chance at that job interview. I emailed the manager, explained what had happened, well, some of it, and to my surprise, they offered to reschedule. I showed up nervous and raw, but I got the job. Just a small front desk position, but to me, it was a brand new chapter. And Ray? I started checking in on him every few days, brought him lunch once, then again. Eventually, it became a weekly thing. He told me the shop took a hit, but he was rebuilding, just like he always did. He even fixed up my car properly, no charge. "This one's on me," he said. "Consider it a clean start." That phrase stuck with me, a clean start, because that's what this whole mess turned into. Not an ending, but a new beginning, for both of us. It's strange, isn't it? How one moment, one small act of kindness can change everything. Ray didn't have to help me that day. He could have walked past my broken car and never looked back, but he didn't. He stopped. He cared. And that changed the entire direction of my life. I still visit his shop once a month. Sometimes we talk about cars, sometimes life, sometimes we just sit in silence with a cup of coffee. He's become like family to me, the kind you choose. I've also started volunteering at a local shelter for women escaping abusive relationships. I tell parts of my story, enough to let them know they're not alone, because if someone like me can find their way out, maybe they can too. People think miracles are loud and dramatic, but mine was quiet. It wore grease-stained gloves and offered me a bottle of water without expecting anything in return. So now, whenever life gets hard again, and it still does, I remember that day. The day I broke down. And someone helped me get back up. All because one good person believed I was still worth saving. And now I believe it too. Sometimes one act of kindness creates a ripple no one sees coming. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like, leave a comment, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that prove the world still has good people in it.